Hello and welcome back to Mohados. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys what the pivot indicator is and how I use it. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. First and foremost, I want to say that this is my second favorite indicator. Number one being the RSI, and it's an amazing indicator. And I'm going to show you guys why. So, first thing you want to do is click indicators, then you hit pivots, and you want to click pivot point standards. Then you should have something that pops up, and then you go over here. What you want to do is you want to first switch it to Fibonacci. But really quickly, I just want to give some background to this. So anyone that you choose here, it's going to derive a line using a different method. Personally, I have used Fibonacci ever since I've used this indicator, and it's treated me well. I do know that traditional has been amazing as well for some people, and I've heard a lot of great things about Camarilla. So you should just go ahead and backtest it, try what you like. Then you want to unclick Show Historical Pivot Points. It's going to be selected. You want to unclick it. Go to Style, choose whatever you like there, and you'll be good to go. So let's bring this bad boy out. So first thing to note of is whatever time frame you're on, it's going to generate different lines, right? So if you choose like the 15-minute, it's going to generate a line for the day, right? So from the beginning of the day all the way to the end of the day, it's going to generate 7 different lines for where it thinks the resistance and supports are, right? Then when you go to the 1 hour, you'll see that I have different lines, and the duration is longer. So on the 1 hour, it goes by a weekly basis, right? So for anything on a 15-minute, it shows just 24 hours, and then for the 1 hour, you'll see that it supports 7 days, right? So understand that first. Then if you go to the daily, it pretty much shows the whole entire month, and so on and so forth, right? But the reason why I love pivots is because they work so well. Like, you guys never have to draw a support and resistance line ever again, and that is insane, because I'm pretty sure you guys understand, like, people draw lines all over the place, and sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. But this right here is amazing because it's mathematically deriving these lines. So let's see how good they are, right? Let's see, right? So this pretty much generated on the 20th over here, right? And what happens is it breaks through, it sells off, but guess what? It holds the pivot, which is interesting, because from a pivot, as you guys know, it can go up or down, right? But once you see this breakout, you start saying, okay, we're hitting this resistance. It kind of sells off, goes up to R2, right? And then it bounces back off of R1. So as you guys know, on an uptrend, anytime a resistance is broken, what happens to that resistance? It becomes support, guys. That's like any market structure that we've seen. Resistance becomes support, and support becomes resistance on a downtrend. So that's interesting. So we see that it breaks up, comes back down to R1, comes back up to R2. It's a major fight right here. This is definitely some type of sideways correction, but I do strongly believe that R1 might get tagged, but as you can see, it didn't, which is pretty good because it kind of made a higher high from this little area, and I hope it doesn't come back low. And that's why I believe that we're probably going to reach up to 7,500, and let's see how how well that holds up. And again, this is a tool, guys, so I just want to make sure that you understand it's a tool. So you use this with anything else that you use, right? So if you're an LE wave trader, you use this for maybe defining levels, right? Or zones of interest, per se, right? Shout out to Eric Cho. He's the one who taught me about that. He's also an amazing trader. But let's look at some prior pivots, right? So last week we were on this pivot zone. Guess what? It hits R1 perfectly and it sells down, right? Can't beat that. The week before that, these lines generated. It reaches up to, it breaks through the pivot, but it bounces off the P perfectly. And then there's other times, right? This is why I say, guys, you have to be extra careful. There's other times where this will generate. You see this? This is a perfect example of why you should be extra careful. It generated over here, right? It hit S2 perfectly, bounces up to S1, and has a little bit of action, and breaks through the whole entire structure, right? So your pivots is pretty much going out of the window. And then let's try to look back one more time for another example. You'll see this generated here, hits pivot, goes a little sideways, goes up, and hangs out on the pivot, and then guess what? It just drops dead, right? So again, I just want to make sure that you guys understand this is something that I personally use as a confirmation tool sometimes, but more importantly, I use it kind of to go with my bias. So if I have an Elliott wave count that's going in a certain direction and I want to identify zones, this is a very good tool to use, right? Yeah, that's pretty much that. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm pretty sure maybe I've missed something out, but go ahead and drop something in the comment zone if you have anything you want to ask. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, like I always say, haro, haro, haro. Peace.